weaknesses, and strengths. So to live in a fantasy world like you're on Friends on TV is not possible. Now even talk about it even outside of the Friends, right? That's easily related, right? World is not like TV. And just like in a marriage, it's not like an advertisement. Your wife, your husband, is not supposed to be Hugh, what's his name, Jackman? Wolverine, that dude. Buff, ripped, right? Even though I really look a lot like him, I'm not going to be like him, right? It's not a movie. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to come and say all the right things. I'm not going to do all the right things. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to be imperfect, right? Okay, we're going to get a little... It always gets here. We always go to the bathroom jokes. But let me tell you something. One of my friends, he told me, I have never, in 6 years, and now going into my 7th year, or 8, it's going into his 8th year. He said, now going into my 8th year of marriage, I have never passed gas in front of my wife. I think it's weird. I think it's awkward. I'm not going to do it. I'm like, no, you're weird. It's natural. It's okay. You are not perfect. Someone always told me women don't go to the bathroom, they make fluffies. And I'm like, that's even worse. That's more disgusting. You don't even need to give that. But we have this perception in our minds of we watch TV or we see advertisements or you see someone else's relationship, their friendship or their marriage, and you want your spouse or your friend to be like that friend and to be like that husband. Reality versus fantasy. Your perception can be your world, but you also have to have truth in your reality. You have to have that. Fantasy world is not real true relationship. I can't expect people to do everything I want them to. There's a perfect church somewhere out there, and this ain't it. Right? There's perfect people out there maybe somewhere, but we ain't it. We love Jesus, and we're sinners, and we're saved by grace, and I'm not perfect. God made me righteous, and that's the only way I can live is by the grace and the holiness that God puts before me, and I will always fail, but God will always be there with grace.
Amen. Right.
And we have to live in a reality world that our friendships will fail, our spouses will mess up, our pastor, forgive me, won't be perfect. Right? Our leaders won't be perfect. Your boss won't be perfect. That's mentoring young people and teaching them that, guess what? You won't work for great people all the time. In fact, most of the time, you're going to have a terrible boss. They're going to grill you. They're going to punish you. They're going to do stuff you don't want them to do. They're going to challenge you. And it could be in a good heart or a bad heart. But guess what, honey? You got to learn. That you got to put up with it. You got to work through it. You got to say, this isn't some fantasy job. I am in reality. I'm in the world. And God is testing me. And He will continue to test me until I pass. So pass the test in relationships. So, next point, and we're trying to continue on here. Number 2 is competing versus complementing. Competing versus complementing. And this is what I mean by that. There are people that look for completion in relationships. Let me tell you now, singles, marrieds, your spouse is not here to complete you. You don't get married to be complete. My wife does not complete me. God completes me.
Yeah. Right?
God is my all in all. God is the only one I need. I gave my wife back to God because I don't need anything aside from God.
Amen.
Right? We can get very detoured. If they become a completion to you, they become a source to you. If they become the source for you, then they become your stability. And if they're your stability, when they mess up, you will fall. And fail every time. But you have to break it down and understand that God is your source. God is your stability. God is your all in all. And He is the one who completes us. I'm going to do a message soon for just all the single adults we have to understand that being satisfied and single. Right? Because you need to be satisfied where you're at. So then competing. There are relationships that compete. Right? There are relationships. You ever had somebody like that? They always got to one-up you. One of my best friends. It's like, wow, I just can't. It drives me insane. I'll get a nice, good shot in golf. And he'll come up, oh, great job, great job. Wham! 10 yards longer, even straighter, better. Like, oh, it's all right. You did good. And they walk on and just compete. Always got to one-up you. You ever had somebody who just always got to one-up you? Whenever you get good news, they're like, well, I got better news. You know, so it gets serious when you are in the same sphere. Now look at this. Now if I was to say, all right, you're friends together, you work together, but you have that competitive something in you between each other, rubbing you. And so when he gets the promotion, it's not going to be good for you. Or when you get the promotion, it's not going to be good for them. They're not going to treat you the same. It's going to be viral. In fact, they're going to probably try to bring you down. That's where that competitive spirit can be very unhealthy. It can be funny at times, but it can be very unhealthy when you have someone who's just not really in your corner. That's when it comes down to those circles again, when you have to decide, okay, where do they belong? Because where they belong will determine the healthiness of that relationship. If I keep them a little further away than my internal circle, handling different all kinds of news will be easier for them. You have the people in your life for a reason. It's not meant to throw away. Only God takes away relationships, and only God gives relationships. So the people that are in your sphere, enemies, friends, family, all of it need to be evaluated. Enemies are in that circle somewhere. But where do they belong in that circle? It should be obvious, right? We don't want to get them close. There's that old saying, keep your friends close but your enemies closer. That's in a whole different vein. That's not what I'm talking about. When you're talking about being successful in your relationships and the direction and the purpose that God has for you, in entering that promised word God has for you, then who is closest to you needs to be highly evaluated every month, I would say. Every month. Because seasons change, people change, life changes. Competing spirits are not healthy to have the closest to you. They need to be a little outside. You need to evaluate them. Distance them. It's okay to do that. Put a little distance. Put a barrier. Put a boundary. You're not allowed, you can't come over unless you call. We can't hang out right now. I'm busy. You know what? I'm going out with it. And you just continue to set those boundaries. You ignore a phone call or two, right? You have to. And I'm not saying treat people negatively. I'm saying be wise and a good steward of the resources God has put in your life, or you will end up suffering because you are not stewarding correctly. So relationships are important. The last, this second part, or third part,